I said it after the NFC Championship game. At least I'm a consistent fella. Said it after the NFC Championship game. Said it all throughout. And I said it yesterday. I said the league had to do what it did, and they did it. And I say to them, well done. Well done. Passing this instant replay maneuver, which will forevermore make sure what happened at the NFC Championship game won't happen again. And yes, the Saints had every opportunity to win that game. They got the ball first in overtime. I understand all of that. But what happened in that game was so awful. It was terrible. Saints fans are still pissed. They'll be pissed forever. It is not what the league should be talking about. It is not the sort of thing, hey, spell my name right, at least you're talking about us type moment. The offensive non-call, and that is the way to call it. It offended many. The fact that it happened, and I understand the refs should get it right. Just be better, be best. Isn't that what they're saying these days?
Yeah, be best.
Okay, hashtag. Be better at your job. I understand. There's still human error. It's always going to happen. And I know we are never going to go back to the days of just umps are going to call it, refs are going to call it, whatever your sport. And Dave Roberts, the manager of the Dodgers, is going to be first up in a few minutes' time. As, by the way, opening day for most of Major League Baseball is tomorrow. We'll never go back to just humans are going to call it, and what we're seeing on television in replay won't be used to fill in the gaps, make sure errors aren't. It's just never going to happen again. You might as well use it to the best of your ability. And now what the league passed yesterday for 1 year, we'll see how it goes, because there's going to be unintended consequences, and we'll review that to the best of my ability in a second. But for 1 year, this year, and I assume it's going to work out fine, and whatever isn't worked out will be fine-tuned. But I do believe forevermore, offensive and defensive pass interference calls will be challenged, and ones that aren't made will be challenged as well, meaning whatever happened at the NFC Championship games and last year will never happen again. And that is what the league should have done, to look the fans in the eyes in New Orleans saying, we hear you, to look to the fans anywhere that might be legally wagering hard-earned American dollars on that. We hear you. We don't want anybody to sit here and think that we're employing referees that aren't on the up and up. We hear you. We got it. Stephen Jones, who's on the competition committee from the front office of the Dallas Cowboys, we had him on just right after the NFC Championship game, right? We called him up. We had it on when they were talking about that
5-6 weeks ago,
right?
yeah.
And it didn't seem like they were going to do anything.
It did not.
John Elway was talking about, let's not overreact here. You might think this is an overreaction. It's not. It's not. It's not. Now, I hear you. This wouldn't have happened had what happened at the NFC Championship game not occurred. So I understand that. Now, that said, you can't sit here and say it's going to make the game longer because it's the same number of challenges. If this happens at the end of the first quarter, early second, you're going to use it. You're going to use a replay flag there, maybe if it's as blatant as that. But if it's not,
I'd say if you're on your side of the field, you're going to.
How about this? You've already gotten a challenge wrong.
I think you got to save it.
So there's that.
That's a huge element for me.
Exactly.
The staying with the two challenges.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also this, when all the replay stuff started, and I'll keep repeating myself, the first NFL owners meeting we covered at the NFL Network, replay's permanence was at stake. And it was either make it permanent or we're not going to have it at all. There was no gray area. They weren't going to 1 year at a time it anymore. Replay was on life support or going to be made immortal. Interestingly enough, the only team to vote against it that day was the same team that voted against this rule yesterday. Mike Brown of the Cincinnati Bengals. Al Davis abstained because that's what he always did, sitting at the very end of the table. So that day, though, part of the conversation against replay came from a lot of coaches A lot of coaches thought my job's tough enough as it is, and I'm not seeing the replay. I have to depend on somebody else in a booth upstairs who's seeing the replay, or I have to depend on the eyes and ears of a player on the field telling me to challenge. I've got enough on my plate. I don't want this responsibility. I shouldn't have this responsibility. Others are like, I want this responsibility. I don't want some unnamed Sky official or Sky judge, as they're being termed these days. I know that's in the AAF too.
Yeah.
But they don't want some unnamed official. If you remember, the replay official used to be in the stadium, and they used to have all sorts of jobs throughout the week that had nothing to do with officiating. So it's interesting to me that all the coaches are now all in on this, and Sean Payton being the one to lead the charge, getting a little apparently celebratory butt slap from Mike Tomlin yesterday because, as Payton pointed out, a pass interference call against the Steelers cost them in that crucial Saints-Steelers classic this year that eventually cost the Steelers a playoff spot. So it's not just Payton the aggrieved party. And I find it fascinating, again, that the coaches are now all in on this, and that this might be the first instance of them using their power in the room, all the owners saying how passionate the coaches were on this, led to 31 teams saying yes to this rule proposal. It's being pointed out by many that this is just going to be the beginning of expanding instant replay.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.